What if the most significant signal from a new global leader wasn't a grand pronouncement, a sweeping encyclical, or a dramatic policy change, but a simple, understated shift in daily routine? Imagine the newly elected head of over 1 billion people, just weeks into his challenging, globally scrutinized role, choosing to step away from the bustling, often frenetic heart of his headquarters and retreat to a quiet, historic countryside villa. This isn't a hypothetical thought experiment. This is precisely what Pope Leo XIV is doing. And in this seemingly small, almost personal act, lies a profound revival of a centuries-old papal tradition that had quietly, perhaps even controversially, faded during the pontificate of his predecessor, Pope Francis. In this return, many observers, both within and outside the Vatican, are already discerning the faint, yet distinct outlines of Pope Leo XIV's unique style, hinting at the very rhythm, priorities, and ultimate direction of his papacy. As Rome's infamous summer temperatures begin their relentless, suffocating climb, pushing past 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit under the relentless, glaring Mediterranean sun, the Vatican has officially confirmed that Pope Leo XIV will spend 2 weeks, from July 6th to the 20th, at the venerable papal residence overlooking the tranquil waters of Lake Albano in Castel Gandolfo, just an hour's drive south of the Eternal City. But to frame this solely as a brief summer vacation would be to profoundly misunderstand its true significance. This is a deliberate, deeply meaningful gesture, steeped in the rich tapestry of church history, imbued with profound tradition, and charged with quiet, yet powerful symbolism that speaks volumes without a single word being uttered. The Vatican has gone a step further, confirming a second, even more symbolically resonant visit. Pope Leo XIV will return to Castel Gandolfo later in the summer, specifically for the pivotal weekend of August 15th to 17th. This second visit is not merely about personal preference or comfort. It is strategically and spiritually aligned with one of the most important feast days on the entire Catholic calendar, the Solemnity of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. In Italy, this date is a national holiday, a day marked by widespread celebration, deep personal reflection, and fervent devotion. The Pope's visible presence in Castel Gandolfo during this sacred time adds considerable spiritual weight to the moment, further rooting his nascent leadership in the long-established, beloved traditions of the Church, signaling a return to ancient rhythms of faith and worship. Early reactions across social media, particularly on platforms like X, formerly Twitter, are already providing fascinating insights into the immediate reception of this decision. The faithful in Italy, steeped in the country's rich Catholic heritage, appear to be enthusiastically embracing the Pope's return to this historic place. One particularly poignant post simply read, "Castel Gandolfo welcomes back the Pope, a return to tradition, a breathing of history into the present." While the veracity of all online comments can't always be definitively verified, such sentiments undeniably reflect a widespread cultural and spiritual importance attached to this move. For many, it doesn't just feel like a restoration of a physical space, a grand old villa. It feels like the restoration of a cherished rhythm, a spiritual pulse that the Church has known, relied upon, and deeply cherished for centuries. Castel Gandolfo is, by any measure, far from an ordinary summer escape. The Vatican's sprawling 55-hectare estate, a verdant oasis, has belonged to the Holy See since 1596, a testament to centuries of papal stewardship. It boasts exquisitely manicured Renaissance gardens, a historic papal residence that whispers tales of past pontiffs, dense, ancient forests teeming with life, and even, remarkably, a functioning dairy farm that still produces fresh milk and cheese, often for consumption within the Vatican itself. For centuries, it served as a peaceful, almost monastic refuge, where popes could withdraw from the often overwhelming, intensely demanding administrative and spiritual burdens of the Vatican. Here, amidst the gentle hills overlooking Lake Albano, they found not just physical rest, but spiritual renewal, intellectual solace, and a quiet space for contemplation. However, it is crucial to note a significant, deliberate nuance in how this tradition is being revived, a detail that speaks volumes about Pope Leo XIV's approach. Vatican spokesperson Matteo Bruni, in a carefully worded statement to Reuters, clarified that Pope Leo XIV will not reside in the Apostolic Palace itself. This very palace, as many will vividly recall, was famously opened to the public as a museum by Pope Francis, who, in a powerful gesture of humility and simplicity, chose not to use it during his own pontificate. Instead, Pope Leo XIV will stay in another Vatican-owned property on the vast estate, a quieter, less grand building still nestled intimately within the sprawling grounds. In this thoughtful, nuanced decision, Pope Leo XIV artfully maintains a delicate yet powerful balance between profound continuity and a meaningful, contemporary renewal. He honors his predecessor's deeply admired legacy of modesty and spiritual simplicity by opting for more humble, less ostentatious accommodations, avoiding the pomp that some might associate with the main palace. Yet, simultaneously, he is decisively reclaiming a meaningful custom, a cherished tradition that spans back generations of popes. And of course, there's the undeniable practical comfort. With Rome's summer temperatures often reaching oppressive, debilitating levels, the cooler climate of Castel Gandolfo, typically several degrees lower and blessed with a refreshing breeze from the lake, offers both practical relief and a vital symbolic retreat, a place where the Holy Father can truly rest and recharge. To accommodate the Pope's essential time of rest and reflection, strategic adjustments will be made to his public schedule, allowing him to step away from the usual intensity and unrelenting pace of papal duties and responsibilities. The Vatican has officially announced that all public and private audiences with Pope Leo XIV will be suspended from July 18th through July 23rd. This pause meticulously mirrors a similar practice observed during Pope Francis's pontificate, offering the Holy Father a brief but deeply meaningful window to step back from his demanding daily responsibilities without disrupting the broader ecclesiastical calendar. Public audiences are expected to resume in Rome on July 30th, signaling a structured approach to his periods of engagement and retreat. Officials at the Vatican have meticulously emphasized that this break follows long-standing papal custom, rooted in centuries of tradition. It is not, they stress, simply a vacation in the secular sense. It is a moment to rest, certainly, but more importantly, to reflect, to pray, and to spiritually prepare for the weighty, often turbulent months ahead, a time of profound discernment. While the modern papacy is known for its constant engagements, its tireless schedule of speeches, its countless diplomatic meetings, and its ever-increasing global visibility facilitated by modern communication, even popes, as human beings, need time to breathe, to recenter. This brief, intentional silence in the Pope's public schedule is a quiet, yet powerful acknowledgement of human limits, and the ancient wisdom of stepping away, of creating sacred pauses, if only for a moment, to nourish the soul. But what truly makes this pause especially noteworthy, indeed historic, is precisely where it is happening. Under Pope Francis, the grandeur, the history, and the spiritual potential of Castel Gandolfo were largely left behind, a testament to his radical simplicity. Instead of retreating to the lush gardens and historic palaces overlooking Lake Albano, Francis famously chose to remain in his modest, air-conditioned apartment within the Vatican walls, even in the peak of summer's sweltering heat. His choice, while widely lauded for its humility, undeniably symbolized a profound break from the comforts, the rituals, and the established traditions of the past. reinforcing his preference for austerity and a closer identification with ordinary people, with the marginalized. Pope Leo XIV's decision to consciously, deliberately revive this summer tradition marks a distinct yet gentle shift. While he clearly respects the modest example set by his predecessor, evident in his choice of simpler accommodations within the estate, avoiding the very grand apostolic palace, he is simultaneously signaling a thoughtful return to something older, something deeply embedded in the ancient rhythms of the papacy, a sense of continuity that many within the Church have yearned for. The symbolism of this move has certainly not gone unnoticed among the keen observers and Vatican watchers. The conversation, often hushed but always insightful, has already begun to stir. Some see in this move the early, definitive signs of Pope Leo XIV's leadership style, one that seeks not to erase or reject the past, but to carefully, respectfully weave it gently to a new, yet continuous, future. One insightful user on X commented, "Leo's heading to Castel Gandolfo shows a profound respect for history while charting his own path, a true synthesis." Others have echoed similar sentiments, seeing the retreat not just as a matter of personal comfort, but as a gesture loaded with deeper meaning about continuity, about the necessity of spiritual rest, and perhaps about a more contemplative, discerning form of leadership. News platforms, eager for insight, are actively monitoring these discussions, looking for deeper signals in what many view as far more than a personal preference. It is, they assert, a carefully calculated papal statement. And as Italy, a nation that thrives on its deeply ingrained traditions, enters its annual August holiday season, when the country traditionally slows down to a tranquil pace and millions of Italians escape to sun-drenched beaches or serene countryside retreats, all eyes are turning once again toward Castel Gandolfo. There, amid the stately cypress trees, the whispers of ancient Roman ruins, and the gentle, calming ripples of Lake Albano, a small, picturesque town will quietly, yet with immense pride, welcome back the Vicar of Christ. And in doing so, it may unexpectedly become a quiet epicenter of global attention, even if only for a few cherished weeks, a powerful symbol in the heart of the Catholic world. As word of the Pope's impending visit spreads, a palpable yet understated anticipation is quietly building among the local populace. According to unverified posts on X and other regional forums, businesses in Castel Gandolfo are already preparing for a possible surge in visitors, sensing an opportunity for revitalization. While no official Vatican announcements regarding specific tourist plans have been made, the immense symbolic weight of a papal presence almost inevitably tends to draw significant attention. Pilgrims seeking spiritual connection, international journalists eager to capture every nuance, and curious travelers drawn by the unique blend of history and contemporary significance. Small cafes, charming family-run restaurants, and local souvenir shops are reportedly restocking their shelves, refreshing their spaces with new paint and decor, and eagerly extending their hours. For many of these local businesses, the Pope's return isn't merely a religious moment. It's a vital economic opportunity, a chance to thrive after a decade of relative quiet. Castel Gandolfo, though charming and inviting year-round, hasn't seen this level of direct papal attention in nearly 10 years, and a few extra weeks of devout visitors during Italy's bustling summer season could make a truly significant difference to the livelihoods of many families. And yet, beyond the immediate economic impact on the shops and streets, there is something far deeper stirring, something intangible. A profound sense that history is once again breathing life into the town's ancient, cobbled walkways. The return of a pope isn't just about increased foot traffic. It's about the profound, spiritual presence of the Holy Father. And for a community whose very identity has been tied to papal tradition for centuries, that sacred presence matters more than any headline, more than any economic boom. But let's delve deeper into why this seemingly modest news is, in fact, such a profoundly significant development. Pope Leo XIV's retreat to Castel Gandolfo is not just a practical escape from Rome's blistering summer heat, an understandable desire for comfort. It is, at its core, the deliberate, conscious revival of a deeply rooted papal tradition that spans centuries. A tradition that once held immense, undeniable significance within the very fabric and spiritual life of the Church. Perched majestically on the edge of Lake Albano, Castel Gandolfo has served as a cherished papal retreat since the early 17th century. The sprawling estate officially came under undisputed Vatican ownership in 1596, during the reign of Pope Clement VIII, solidifying its place in papal history. However, it was Pope Urban VIII who truly transformed the ancient Roman villa already existing on the site into a dedicated summer residence for the popes, commissioning the construction of what we now recognize as the iconic apostolic palace of Castel Gandolfo, a symbol of papal presence outside the Vatican walls. From that pivotal point forward, it quickly became a beloved, cherished place of respite, rest, and profound reflection for the successors of Peter. Over the succeeding centuries, nearly every pope made regular and often extensive use of the residence. Some, like the busy administrators, spent only a few weeks there each summer, a brief respite from their demanding duties. Others, the more contemplative pontiffs, remained for longer, extended stretches, using the tranquil, inspiring surroundings to think deeply, to write groundbreaking encyclicals, and to pray fervently, far away from the ceaseless pressures and political machinations of Vatican life. Castel Gandolfo offered something uniquely invaluable: the profound stillness of the countryside, a vital spiritual oasis, without straying too far from the very heart of the church they led. Yet, it wasn't solely a vacation home or a place of quiet contemplation. At several key defining moments in history, Castel Gandolfo courageously served as a place of refuge and humanitarian solace. During the tumultuous years of World War II, Pope Pius XII, displaying immense courage and compassion, opened its gates wide to thousands of terrified civilians fleeing relentless bombings in Rome. Thousands of vulnerable women, children, and elderly found desperately needed shelter and safety inside the sacred papal gardens and within the very buildings of the estate. In one of the lesser-known but deeply moving chapters of the war, a testament to God's providence even amidst chaos, over 40 babies were miraculously born on Vatican soil within the protective walls of Castel Gandolfo, a testament to its role as a sanctuary. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, the estate remained a kind of spiritual oasis for successive pontiffs. Popes like the beloved St. John XXIII, the visionary St. Paul VI, and especially the incredibly active and beloved St. John Paul II found immense peace and renewed vigor there, often retreating during the hot, debilitating Roman summers to pray, write, and simply breathe. Pope Benedict XVI, known for his deep theological mind and love for quiet reflection, cherished the serenity of the gardens and spent extended periods of prayer and study at the villa. And in perhaps its most iconic modern moment, when he became the first pope in modern times to stunningly resign from his office, it was Castel Gandolfo where he spent his very first days as Pope Emeritus, watching the white smoke rise from afar as the world held its breath, awaiting the election of his successor. That's why Pope Francis's decision to entirely skip Castel Gandolfo, to completely forgo its use, felt like such a profound rupture to many traditionalists and Vatican observers. While many undoubtedly praised his sincere preference for simplicity and his unwavering focus on being a pope of the peripheries, actively seeking to connect with the marginalized and less fortunate, others quietly yet deeply mourned what they perceived as the unfortunate loss of a beloved tradition, a tradition that, for them, symbolized the very humanity of the papacy, a visible reminder that even the vicar of Christ, the spiritual shepherd of the world, needs profound rest, quiet reflection, and a sacred space for personal retreat. For nearly a decade, the Grand Palace, steeped in history and prayer, stood eerily empty of papal presence, its venerable rooms transformed into public tourist attractions, no longer alive with the quiet, spiritual rhythms of papal retreat and contemplative prayer. And now, remarkably, that silence is ending. With Pope Leo XIV's thoughtful return to Castel Gandolfo, even in a modest and updated way, the ancient tradition finds new breath, new life. It's not about luxury. It's not about an uncritical return to the past or reversing reforms. It's about rediscovering a vital spiritual rhythm that allowed popes throughout history to reconnect profoundly with themselves, with their deepest spiritual identity, and most importantly, with God, amidst the immense weight of their service to the universal church. This is why this news, seemingly small to an outsider, matters so profoundly. Because traditions, especially in the ancient, deeply rooted world of Catholicism, are never just about repetition or rigid adherence to past practices. They are about profound meaning. They are about unbroken continuity. And they often speak more loudly, more eloquently, than any formal declarations or written words could. In a modern world that often celebrates speed, demands constant disruption, and values relentless, often exhausting change, the deliberate decision to return to something old, something seemingly small and personal like a summer retreat, is quietly yet immeasurably powerful. Pope Leo XIV's upcoming visit to Castel Gandolfo is therefore far more than a practical measure to beat the Roman heat. It is a choice profoundly loaded with spiritual and symbolic meaning. By consciously choosing to walk the shaded paths of the papal gardens once again, to gaze upon the tranquil lake as his predecessors did, he is sending a subtle yet unmistakable message. Not everything from the past needs to be forgotten, dismissed, or discarded. Some things, some traditions, hold profound wisdom and value precisely because they have survived, because they have endured the tests of time and change. What we are witnessing in these early days of his pontificate may well be the early, definitive shaping of a papacy that consciously seeks a profound balance, a balance between cherished tradition and necessary renewal, between essential rest and immense responsibility, between personal humility and the weighty heritage of the Petrine office. Pope Leo XIV is emphatically not rejecting the reforms and spirit of Pope Francis's pontificate. In fact, he is honoring them in part by deliberately choosing simpler, more unassuming accommodations within the vast estate, consciously avoiding the formal grandeur of the apostolic palace itself, maintaining that spirit of modesty. But at the very same time, with a gentle yet firm hand, he is restoring a piece of the rich Catholic imagination, a vital spiritual practice that had quietly, and for many, sadly, faded. He is reminding the world, and indeed the Church itself, that even the Pope, the successor of Peter, is first and foremost a pilgrim, a human being, and even he needs sacred places of stillness, of prayer, of spiritual renewal. This move has resonated deeply with many, not only because of a simple nostalgia for past practices, but because it speaks to something profoundly, universally human, the innate need for spiritual rhythm, for periods of withdrawal and reflection in our often chaotic lives. The modern world is relentlessly restless, demanding constant engagement, constant output, and even the Church, with its global reach and myriad responsibilities, can sometimes be inadvertently swept up in that relentless, exhausting pace. Public events, intricate diplomatic meetings, countless speeches, global synods, an overwhelming presence on social media. The papacy in the 21st century is more visible, more public, and more demanding than ever before. But the very soul of the Church, its spiritual lifeblood, is not ultimately found in press releases, in media appearances, or in public accolades. It is found, as it always has been, in silence, in profound prayer, and in the enduring wisdom of tradition. That's precisely what Castel Gandolfo, in this new context, represents. It is more than just a beautiful destination. It is a potent symbol of what happens when the incessant noise of the world finally fades, when the clamor of demands quiets, and when the Church, the mystical body of Christ, is finally allowed to breathe, to rest, to recenter itself on God. And that, perhaps, is what makes Pope Leo XIV's choice so profoundly moving and resonant. He isn't merely escaping a physically uncomfortable environment. He is returning to a sacred space where deep, transformative reflection is genuinely possible, where the still, small voice of God isn't drowned out by the cacophony of headlines and demands, and where the successor of Peter can find spiritual solace and rest in the hallowed footsteps of his many predecessors, drawing strength from the timeless wellspring of faith. And what's more, this pivotal moment is unfolding in a world that is watching, perhaps, more closely than ever before. Since his election on May 8th, Pope Leo XIV has already, subtly yet distinctly, drawn attention with his quiet confidence, his unhurried deliberation, and his remarkably steady demeanor. He has not rushed to make dramatic, sweeping changes or issue revolutionary decrees. Instead, he has made a series of deliberate, thoughtful gestures that, taken together, suggest a carefully considered, deeply spiritual vision for the Church's future. This retreat, while seemingly simple and personal, fits perfectly into that evolving pattern. A careful, harmonious blending of the old and the new, of active presence and intentional pause, of profound spiritual reflection and outward pastoral action. For the Catholic faithful, particularly those who cherish the rich tapestry of tradition, this moment feels immensely significant. It's not just about a summer schedule or a change of scenery. It's about direction, about the very trajectory of the Church under its new shepherd. And direction, especially in the early, formative days of a pontificate, is truly everything. There's also a crucial pastoral side to this decision that should not be overlooked, for it has ripple effects throughout the entire Church. By stepping himself into a discernible rhythm of rest, reflection, and spiritual renewal, Pope Leo XIV provides powerful permission, by his very example, for others in the Church to do the same. For countless priests, bishops, religious men and women, and dedicated lay leaders, many of whom are exhausted and on the brink of burnout from the relentless demands of ministry and service, this gesture serves as a quiet, yet profound, reminder. Retreat is not a sign of weakness or apathy. It is, in fact, an act of profound spiritual wisdom, a necessary step for sustained service. In a time where burnout, chronic overwork, and spiritual fatigue plague even the most faithful and zealous servants of the Church, this return to Castel Gandolfo may plant the vital seeds for a broader cultural shift within Catholic life, one that values the indispensable interior life as much as, if not more than, external action, endless busyness, and outward performance. And that, in itself, could prove to be one of the most transformative and enduring legacies of this quiet, yet impactful decision. For the picturesque town of Castel Gandolfo itself, the impact is tangible and deeply felt. After nearly a decade without the regular, comforting presence of a pope, the return of papal footsteps to its ancient streets revives not only a cherished tradition, but a living, breathing relationship. The local community, inextricably tied to the Vatican by both geography and a shared spiritual heritage, finds itself once again at the vibrant center of a living story, a continuous narrative, one in which the Pope is not just a distant, inaccessible figure on a television screen, but a neighbor, a tangible presence, a fellow pilgrim walking among them. And then there's the wider world, observing from afar. To outside observers, particularly those from a more secular or fast-paced perspective, the Catholic Church can sometimes appear slow-moving, archaic, or perhaps even out of step with the rapid pulse of modern life. But moments like these, the quiet return to an ancient villa, the deliberate choice of stillness over spectacle, remind us powerfully that the Church does not operate on the world's frantic calendar. Its enduring power is not found in its speed or its ability to adapt to every fleeting trend, but in its profound depth, its rootedness in eternal truths. While political leaders rush from one urgent press conference to the next, from one carefully choreographed photo opportunity to another, the Pope's decision to quietly spend time in an ancient villa, surrounded by olive trees, tranquil gardens, and profound stillness, speaks volumes without uttering a single political word. It reminds us that true strength can, at times, look like silence, that genuine renewal often begins in hidden, unassuming places, and that leadership rooted deeply in humble prayer, in spiritual contemplation, will always, ultimately, outlast leadership rooted solely in performance, in fleeting popularity, or in worldly power. And so, as the summer sun beats down on Rome, and the Eternal City begins its annual much-needed slowing, Pope Leo XIV's deliberate steps away from the bustling Vatican and into the serene embrace of Castel Gandolfo will echo with a quiet, profound strength. In a world desperately chasing the next headline, the next trend, the next technological innovation, the Church, under its new leader, once again chooses something older, something deeper, something timeless. And in that sacred stillness, in that conscious return to ancient rhythm, perhaps, just perhaps, something truly new, something profoundly transformative, will begin to unfold.